So this project is about continuing the work of assassinated reporters, under threat reporters, jailed reporters, who both of them were investigating the same story. They were investigating environmental scandals, and they were stopped. Some of them were killed, some of them were jailed, and we decided to collaborate with more than 40 journalists to continue their work and make sure that people will access these important informations.
And usually when we think about, journalists, we're always busy competing with one another, trying to be the first to get out a scoop. But here, like you say, we have more than 40 journalists from 15 different media companies all coming together to try and make a difference. How did you get them all on board? And, was it a challenge?
I think thanks to the success of the Panama Papers, all of us, we can see the impact of such an investigation when it's when it's about collaboration. Mm-hmm. Collaboration is bringing protection. Collaboration is bringing a much more precise information, because we are not only one, we are 40. Of course, it's very different from what we were teach when we were students or what we were trained for. Before 10 years ago, you can lose your job by sharing any kind of information. I think now it's a bit different. We are not pursuing a single agenda of one newsroom. We are collaborating with newsrooms from all over the world, because we know that that kind of crime, which is an environmental crime, we need to reveal the existence, because we need to know exactly what happened. So this crime is crossing the border. So our way of doing journalism need to cross the borders. There is no doubt on that. So we need to adjust, facing the kind of crimes we want to investigate.
And in the documentary, you cross borders in India, Guatemala and Tanzania, where journalists trying to report on environmental abuse are being attacked or threatened. Why did you choose these particular stories in particular? So perhaps explain to us your methodology and why this focus on the mining sector.
We discover that many stories were related to the environmental. And some of them, and many of them actually, were related to the mining industry, which is one of the most, not only the most destructive industry, but also the less transparent, where you can find a lot of lack of transparency and a lot of impunity. Mm-hmm. And so we saw that journalist, Jagendra Singh in India, were investigating the sand mafia in Uttar Pradesh. Other ones in Tanzania were forced to leave the country because they were investigating the link between one state and one gold mining company. At the very same time, journalists in Guatemala were trying to investigate the contamination of a lake from a mining company who is based in Switzerland and Russia. Mm-hmm. So those three reporters, they didn't know each other at the beginning. But what we try to do is really to see how there is a global pattern beyond that, and what collaboration can do, and what kind of information we can bring on the table. So we decided to work secretly for almost 1 year with 40 reporters who are with a very different skills. Some of them were very good in open source journalism, analyzing pictures from Twitter, from Facebook, to find who gave the order to shoot that fisherman on that day in Guatemala. We were having in the team people who were very good in tax avoidance issue to identify where the assets are going. We were having in the team some excellent journalists tracking the supply chains to identify where the gold from Tanzania is going to the Silicon Valley, and who are the companies who are buying that gold. And we did have some impact. In Guatemala, the mining industry lose its license to mine. In India, some sand were now banned to be exported. And in Tanzania, some tech companies just announced that they will conduct some investigation inside their own industry to see what happened exactly.
And the companies that are implicated in these environmental crimes, did they come back to you? Like, did you manage to interview them to get their side of the story?
This is one of the sad part of that. It's we are living in a world where every time you're watching TV, you can see some big companies pretending that they are more green than ever. They are very responsible.
Yes, greenwashing.
Yes, and it's mostly about greenwashing. They are pretending that if you have any question, we will provide you any answer. But when we knock on the door of all of those companies, we try to seek answers from them with facts and only facts. And we were not one, we were several newsrooms. And all of them say, yes, of course, talk to the press officer first, then we will answer if we have some answers for you.
Without wanting to spoil the suspense for TV viewers, in one of the episodes in Guatemala, there's a police officer who you approach, who basically, he doesn't deny that police fired on protesters who were demonstrating against this mine that was accused of polluting their environment. He basically says that there's no official proof, so the police cannot be prosecuted. How can a project like yours, contribute to fighting this impunity?
Yeah.
Can it have an impact?
That's thanks to the excellent work of Jules Giroda, Arthur Bouvard, Alexis Maron, and all the partners of Forbidden Story. They were on the field in that Guatemalan police station. They were looking for who gave the order to the other policemen to shoot on the fishermen who were protesting against the pollution of the lake from the mine. And I think that when that policeman and that police station, when they saw arriving journalists from El País, from Le Monde, from The Guardian, from Forbidden Stories, at the very same time, knocking on the door, looking for the guy who gave the order to have just his view, just his explanation, just some. We are just doing journalism. I think that that's the power of collaboration with international outlets, because they can see that the local journalists, they are not alone, and we are trying to connect each to all of them to make sure that we can guarantee that the public opinion will access to that kind of information.
And just a short word about the format of the documentary series. So it's told almost like a thriller movie. The spectator is kept on the edge of his seat right up until the end. It's very entertaining. But you're not worried that by sensationalizing almost the horrors of the mining industry, that you're not trivializing the lives of these journalists that were lost? How do you what do you do to avoid falling into this trap of sensationalism, and why this storytelling method in particular?
Yes, the only thing we do to avoid that kind of trap is really to respect the facts and to tell only the facts and to tell only the way the facts appear. And this is why this doc series is without any voiceover. This is why there is one part of the investigation that is happening in India, but at the very same time, something happened in Tanzania. And so we try to tell the story with the help of talented directors as the investigation really happened. I think that the way we are filming the people is we are thinking about protecting the people. We are thinking about how we can tell the story in the most honest way. It's about companies, it's about multinational, it's about politics, but it's also about human story.
And if we sort of talk about another hidden story, your own personal story, just sort of talk us through how you started out, in your journey on this investigative journalism route. So, what inspired you to launch Forbidden Stories and to try and shake up the journalism industry?
So I started my career as a journalist something like 20 years ago. I started being an investigative filmmaker. I did some documentaries. I went many times on the field and being considered as a French journalist coming from a democracy. And I was investigating stories of corruption, of money laundering in some countries like Azerbaijan, where for the very same story, people locally were arrested.
Okay.
And so I was having that feeling a lot of time, which is not only a feeling, but which was true, that we have freedom of the press here in our country, how we can make sure that the other ones can benefit from that. And something much more personal that happened in my life really convinced me to do everything I can to start Forbidden Stories. And this happened in January 2015, when the terrorists of Al-Qaeda in Yemen entered the newsroom of Charlie Hebdo.
Yes.
And Charlie Hebdo was located right at the door, right next to my offices. And that day I arrived 2 minutes after the terrorists escaped the building. And then I discovered that many of the people who used to be my neighbors and some of my colleagues of people I know were killed. And on a personal note, I really decided to think that what I can do as a journalist. I didn't want to do any kind of advocacy, but I want to stay a journalist. What I can do as a journalist to continue the work of assassinated reporters. What I can do to keep the stories alive. And so from that day, I decided to focus on what could be the answers. And I do think that the answer is collaborative journalism. It's continuing that way and sending really a strong signal to enemies of the free press that even if you try to kill the messenger, you won't kill the message.